Welcome back and thanks for staying with us. You're still watching Rapid Done right here on Rapid Television. Right now, it is time for the big conversation. My name is Victor. Okay.
My name is Martha Alu. Welcome to the 9 o'clock conversation right here on Rapid TV.
And today we spotlight drug abuse, which has remained one of Nigeria's biggest social and public health challenges. It affects young people, families, schools, workplaces, and communities. And it also fuels crime and insecurity in our country. Now, in recent years, the National Drug Law Enforcement Agency has gone beyond making arrests. The agency has intensified intelligence-led operations against drug cartels, expanded its war against drug abuse, which is known as the WADA, the campaign there in schools and communities, also increased counseling and rehabilitation for people battling addiction, and is now using technology and data to track new drug trends. But despite these efforts, the problem of drug abuse continues to grow, raising important questions about what is driving the trend and what more can be done. And to help us understand the current situation, the work the NDLEA is doing, and the role every Nigerian can play in prevention and recovery, we are joined this morning by the Director of Media and Advocacy of the National Drug Law Enforcement Agency, Mr. Femi Babafemi. Good morning to you, sir, and welcome to the conversation.
Thank you, Victor. Good morning.
Thank you for joining us.
Martha.
Sorry,
That's fine.
It's all right.
You already told me it's meant for men, so I'm not upset. It's good to have you join us.
Welcome, sir.
Thank you.
Now let's begin. Despite the various arrests, despite the convictions and the awareness campaigns by the NDLEA, drug abuse continues to affect various communities across Nigeria. We hear that there are certain new synthetic drugs that are also emerging. More young people are becoming vulnerable, and many families are struggling quietly with addiction. Would you say that the NDLEA is truly making significant progress in the fight against drug abuse, or is the program evolving faster than the response?
No, absolutely. There's no doubt about whether we are making a significant impact. Definitely, no one can dispute that, and that's globally acknowledged, not just in Nigeria alone. But then the issues, and that's why it's a global challenge, and that's why the theme for this year's World Drug Day is the World Drug Problem: Persisting Issues, New Challenges, Innovative Responses. It's understood globally that despite all the concerted efforts, that there will still be, this problem will still be persisting, meaning that beyond what the enforcement agencies are doing, there are quite a number of what you call the predisposing factors, the causative factors. Have those factors been addressed? You see, it's one thing for us. Just imagine in the last 5 years, we've taken out of circulation more than 80 million kilograms of assorted illicit. If you know what 80 million kilograms of assorted illicit substances looks like, that's putting putting some states together and filled to the brim with drugs. So that's huge. That's humongous. And then beyond that, the agency has continued to deploy a balanced approach, not just about, just like he said in his introductory remarks, it's not just about making the arrest, but then combining this with sensitization, awareness creation across board, starting from the families, the schools, churches, mosques, workplaces, motor parks, markets, and all of these places to be, so that people can know that indeed there are dangers in this thing. Don't go into it. That's aimed at preventing people from going into it. And even when people go into it, again, we have mechanism in place to provide support to those who want to be helped. That's treatment and rehabilitation, and even post rehabilitation mechanisms. That's to reintegrate them back into society through skills acquisition, empowerment, and all of those things. We have all of those things in place. So that's we've had significant, again, in the last maybe 65 months or so, we've had more than 50,000 persons benefit from this through our 31 rehabilitation centers spread across the country. So indeed, those impacts are there. But then the underlying factors, have they been addressed? And that's why, again, we have to come out of our own like working outside of our box, outside of our mandates to connect with other stakeholders who are supposed to do certain things to be able to address some of the causative factors. You know, we're partnering, working with the state governments, working with the local governments through state drug control committees, local government drug control committees, so that the predisposing factors, those elements there, because it's one thing for you to take people off the street, rehabilitate them, and then after 6 months in rehabilitation center, they are well, they are okay, they are normal, and then they go back to the same environment, go back to the same issues, to the same triggers, and then the thing triggers them, then they relapse. The cycle begins all over again. So that's why we say, okay, while we are doing our own bit, then these other stakeholders, let's also carry them along so that they can also address some of these issues. And that's why, like I said, we're working with the various stakeholders, the state government, the local government, even the private sector, to see how they can also come in, help provide skills acquisition for the young people. And we acknowledge the fact that indeed the federal government at the federal level, there are quite a lot of schemes to empower the youths, the young people especially, because they are the bulk of the people, the victims of this problem. So, and we know there are quite a lot of socioeconomic empowerment schemes placed already by the federal government, and then all of these medium scale programs for them through the agric and all of those things. But then, so that's why we're working with all of these stakeholders to ensure that even the agency itself has to go out to place what we call the alternative development program, which is to go to where the communities where the people grow cannabis, because whether we like it or not, cannabis is the greatest challenge because that's the most commonly abused substance in Nigeria today. When you go back to the 2018 drug use survey report that put the population of those abusing illicit substances aged 15 and 64 at 14.3 million Nigerians, those abusing cannabis alone stands at 10.6 million, which that's huge.
10.6 million.
Yeah, 10.6 million. Cannabis alone, that's the population of a number of European countries, and even a number of African countries combined, not even just one. So that's huge. So that's why we have to also go to those communities to address this from the root. That is, okay, instead of you people cultivating cannabis, we have this program, the alternative development, to offer you help so that you can cultivate alternative crops, cash crops, food crops, and then have a sustainable livelihood rather than you seeing any vehicle coming into your community and running into the bush thinking it's NDLEA and you not being able to sleep with your two eyes closed at night because of the fear of NDLEA. You can do something legitimate and then you still have you should be able to maintain and then live a normal life. So that's those are the things we're doing to address quite a number of innovative responses as the theme of this year's World Drug Day depicts. Quite a number. I'm sure if we have the time, I'll be going into some of those.
All right. Thank you very much. First of all, I want to commend the efforts of the NDLEA regarding some of these clampdowns that we have seen in different parts of Nigeria. However, there was a very interesting discovery and very concerning as well in the Tapa village, which is basically about the meth lab that was found in Oyo State, Ibadan. And you know why this is quite concerning is the fact that we have heard arrests here and there, but we haven't quite seen where these drugs are now actively produced here in Nigeria on our soil alongside Mexican cartels here in Nigeria. That's such a huge discovery. Now, my question is, you talked about dealing with this from the root. How do we deal with such an issue? Because it means now that there's a whole cartel operating here in Nigeria that we might need to uncover. How can you deal with this issue from the root to ensure that there's no spread across different parts of Nigeria?
Very well. Thank you. Valid question there, Martha. I'll tell you that indeed, first, we, the agency has the capacity and capability to track some of these things, and that's why we're able to dismantle those structures even before they get entrenched in those communities. Apart from what was discovered in Tapa village, I think the bigger picture, the bigger facility was discovered in Ogun East, Ijebu East in Ogun State. That what we evacuated from there was almost ₦500 billion.
Yeah.
So just imagine ₦500 billion in the hand of criminal elements. That's huge. That's humongous. So now, first, like I said, we have the capacity and capability to keep track on them, and then be able to preempt them and dismantle their structures before they get entrenched in those communities. That we're already doing.
Okay.
Now, two, I also know that there is ongoing effort to engage with governors across the state, especially now that we know that the Mexican cartels are trying to get entrenched, create a meth production hub in the southwest region. So there is an ongoing effort to engage with the governors in those states to be able to do certain things so that some of these issues can be addressed at the grassroots. And then we continue to intensify our engagement with stakeholders at those grassroots levels so that first, they will know that the agency, whatever we're doing, is in their interest, is protecting them. It's not about just some miscreants bringing some few millions of naira for you people, and then you allocate lands to them, and then you don't even care about what they are doing there. Just imagine. That's why we took an aerial view of those two locations, and you see they are isolated, right in the middle of nowhere in the forest. So, I mean, they will pass through certain villages to get to those places. So, then the villages should be able to know these people are not moving yams, they are not moving maize, they are not moving cassava, they are moving chemicals, drums. So, what's the connection between drums and farming? I mean, drums of chemicals and farming. So, that's why. So, we are also intensifying efforts to get the villagers, the people at the grassroots, to be more vigilant, and then so that they will be able to do their own civic responsibility of alerting the security agencies, especially the NDLEA in this case, because it's a collective effort, not just the duty of any particular government institution. And our alternative development program again comes into focus in this, because some of those expanse of land, you expect that they should be converted for agricultural purposes, not for this kind of criminal enterprise.
All right. Last year you did make a statement anyways in one of your interviews, and you said that arrest without treatment, incarceration without rehabilitation, and enforcement without prevention have kept the country running in circles. Now, you've talked about some of the alternative programs, so it could be safe to say that you've moved past arrest and incarceration to now providing alternative programs. However, the NDLEA has said that more than 13,500 people have received counseling and rehabilitation between 2025 and the first half of 2026. Yeah. Now, what happens after treatment?
Okay, very well, thank you. Again, I did say that we trying as much as possible to get the people to understand, or to change the misconception or the perception of the people that the NDLEA is not just that hard agency that is always after you arresting us. So yes, we have that part. That's the law enforcement part. But then again, we also have the human part of the agency, where we provide this sensitization, this support for people who are going through, who are struggling with substance abuse. So, and like I did said again in my earlier statements, that in our treatment and rehabilitation centers, we continue to enhance and elevate some of these people. The more we get help from various stakeholders, and then so when people go through treatment in our facilities, there are some non-governmental organizations or development partners that will partner with, that provide skills acquisition for these people, because like it's observed or stated, it's not enough for people to be taken out of where their environment, where they're having issues with this drug, taking them into rehabilitation, and then after rehabilitation, they are thrown back to the same environment, and then they relapse. The cycle begins. It's like a waste of resources and time. So that's why we are advocating that beyond this, okay, let's have these people, and because more often than not, a number of times, the primary trigger, they are socio-economic issues. So why they are within the facility, we try to get them to acquire some skills that will make them useful by the time they leave. That is, that will make their reintegration back into the society easier and more productive. And that's why when we encourage development partners, private sector practitioners, and non-governmental organizations that have the means to provide support for this kind of people, so that when we impart knowledge, we impart skills on these people, when they are leaving, they have something to live with, so that they have something meaningful, gainful to go and do when they go back to the society. So
in that view, do you have a data that shows how many persons that have successfully rebuilt their life after the rehabilitation process?
Oh, quite tremendous, I'll tell you. And some of these people are now advocates, They themselves have become are now crusaders, carrying the message. And even some of them have even gone ahead to establish NGOs to continue to advocate for this, and they are very well, because they know the impact and what this can cause a human life. So they themselves, it's not that we don't want to just be a beneficiary. We also want to be useful, be a benefactor to others. So we have quite, I may not be able to give you specific numbers at the moment, but then I'll tell you that, because that's the whole essence of it. I mean, because we know that relapse is a major challenge on its own, and relapse, again, we must admit, is also part of the recovery process, because it's not like a walk in the park, that's rehabilitation. It's not that easy. It's a complex thing. So sometimes there could be relapse, because even those who have been rehabilitated and they are recovered, they are still seen as people in recovery, because
that's right.
You can relapse.
The cravings still come. So that's why we continue to build resilience on them, and that's why we continue to encourage them to continue to be champions, advocates, rather than just folding their hands and hide. Because when they are active in that space, in that ecosystem, then they know that they have a responsibility. If they are now championing the cause, they know they have a responsibility to stay away from it, no matter the cravings. So the resilience, that builds their resilience, and then leads them to avoid the relapse.
Okay. Now, let's talk about what's new in the NDLEA. A few days ago, we heard that now guns, AK-47s were mentioned, being approved for the fight against...
And some advanced pistols.
And now it's now been approved. NDLEA is now being approved to use these weapons. It took 36 years, it's been a very long time interfacing with these drug cartels and people involved in the trade. So my first question would be, why now? And my second question to you would be about policies regarding these rules of engagement. In countries like the Philippines, where weapons were also being approved for the drug law enforcement agencies to, fight against drug abuse, extrajudicial killings happened where people that engaged in this trade were killed before even taken to the court.
Nigeria is no way compared to Philippines, don't forget.
Exactly, we are not. But, it happens, even with just the police force. We have seen extrajudicial killings in the last couple of months. In fact, we've had very recent cases as well. So now I want to ask, what are the NDLEA's rules of engagement, and what accountability mechanisms exist in cases where extrajudicial killings are carried out by your officer to a drug trafficker?
Very well, thank you. I'll tell you, you see, in our own case, we didn't just acquire these weapons and then issue them, even though our officers over the years have been trained in weapons handling. And they've been handling weapons over the years. And I'll tell you, the agency has been probably one of the least that has had incidences of not accidental discharge or all those kind of things. Yeah, we've been the list. But then in our own case, like I'm trying to say, we didn't just issue these weapons to our officers. We have to take them to our academy in Jos. Okay. Do you understand? Where they go through the training. I mean, it's like retraining them all over on the new weapons. Yeah. And then the number we have some hundreds now at the academy undergoing this training. And then after that, they go back to the different commands to train others. And that will take some weeks. It's not just immediate. That will take some weeks. And then those trainings include not just the weapons handling, it includes all of the mechanisms, all of the responsibilities that the new weapons bring on them, on the officers, and then the rules of engagement, all of those things. We have SOPs. That's those are things that state terms of engagement and all of those things. So all of these things have been impacted on them at the academy, and then they also go back to their command to impact on their colleagues. So it's they are laid down principles and operational guidelines for them to follow, and that they've been doing. And that's why, like I said, we have very least cases of such incidents when it comes to handling or incidents of accidental discharges.
So why now?
Yes, why now? Because we know that we're dealing deadly blows to the cartels, and over time we know that when they are pressed hard like this, there is the thing that they also want to fight back. And then so you don't wait till your enemies rise and turn against you before. We know that there have been skirmishes especially in the forest where we go to dismantle their structures. In the last the Ogun East the Ijebu East raid. I mean there were some engagements in the home of the Baron when there was an attempt to arrest him. There was an engagement. It's just that those things were not made public for obvious operational reasons. There was some engagement. So these people are not ordinary people. They are armed. They groom and arm militias. And then for us to pass through them, it's like passing through fire. Those they are armed militia. So you have to also we can't just send our own men and women into the forest, into their midst to go and dismantle their structures without preparing them and arming them with the right weapons and instruments to defend themselves and defend the communities and the citizens we are fighting for.
Just a final question will be about the new National Drug Control Master Plan, which has been scheduled for 2026 and 2030 rather. Just being supported by the UNODC, ECOWAS, and of course the European Union. What are the major policy changes in this new master plan?
Yeah, I quite like people are well versed in because your questions are very technical and on point. I give that to you. Thank you for the excellent job you've done there. That means you've done your homework very well.
That's right.
Yes. The new NDCLP, that's the National Drug Control Master Plan. The new one, what we used to have before, had, as at the last one, it's always had 4 pillars. But now we're having 2 additional pillars. Okay. That's like 2 additional assignments that need to be addressed, or major issues that need to be addressed. And these 2 include the Alternative Development Program, that's empowering the people who are into this production so that they can embrace alternative and sustainable livelihoods.
Okay.
That's one great pillar that we intend to pursue between now and the 2030. That's what the master plan is saying. And then there is also the pillar that has to do with the financial backbone of the cartels. Now we've been going after, we don't just go after the barons, the cartels, arresting them, sending them to prison, because for some of them, it doesn't matter. They can decide to stay in the prison for 5 years. They don't mind, as long as their funds in their bank accounts, their mansions, their luxury vehicles are intact. They even right from the prison, we've seen instances like that. They still try to control run this outside, run the business outside. So now what we're trying to do is, beyond taking the drugs from them, sending them to jail, then we go after all their assets. Okay. That's dismantling their financial structure to ensure that they don't enjoy the proceeds of their crime. So that's stripping them naked and leaving them with nothing. If they ever come out of prison alive, then there is nothing for them to build on again. So that's what the sixth pillar it's trying to address. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you so much, I do appreciate you.
Thank you.
Right about now, we've been talking, of course, with the Director of Media and Advocacy of the National Drug Law Enforcement Agency, Mr. Femi Babafemi. Right now, we'll go on a break. When we'll come back, we're going to be joined by Ameh Zion Abba to continue with the conversation. Do stay with us. Welcome back and thanks for staying with us. This is still the big conversation right here on Rapid Dawn. And right now we're being joined by Ameh Zion Abba, a policy advocate and systems thinker. He's also the founder, Mandate Health Empowerment Initiative. Good morning to you, Zion, and thank you for being here.
Thank you very much for having me.
I do appreciate it.
Thank you so much.
We're still talking about, drug abuse in this part of the world, basically. And of course, Nigeria has a Mental Health Act.
Correct.
Basically, which many describe as a landmark reform. But laws, just like people will say, do not automatically change lives. Now, looking at where we are today, what has been the biggest failure in implementing the Nigerian Mental Health Act?
Amazing. All right. Thank you very much for bringing up that interesting conversation. Now, you see, if you look at the journey from where we came from, the 1958 Lunacy Act.
Right.
Now, how it went about going through several attempts of repeal from the executive, from the National Assembly, so many years, right? And then eventually, almost a century. And then now, we are now able to now say that, yes, we now have a National Mental Health Act 2021. And then we are now still struggling to really point out the level of implementation that something is wrong. Now, if you understand the journey that transcended from when it was an ordinance, right, from 1916 to when it was repealed, and then now became an act in 1958. And till date that now we have a National Mental Health Act that we feel at least have got some level of human rights, have got some level of human face, to understanding the current realities around the mental well-being of Nigerians. And then we are still having conversations on the level of implementation. Now, let me even take you down the line. It's not even about the overall national level of implementation. How many states have domesticated this act? Right? I mean, you could just count them on your fingers. How many states? Does it mean that mental health is not that priority? Does it not mean that we're separating mental health from health overall? It's not possible. I mean, there is never going to be a time where we have health without mental health. There's no health without mental health. Now, if that becomes the case, it's not a subject of negotiation to get commitment from government, from stakeholders, to ensuring that this law, this act, are being domesticated at the state level, and also that they drive the implementation, the operationalization of this very important act. Let me just mention that you can find a community, you can find a nation that is driving towards growth and development where their people are not mentally healthy. It's not possible. So this should be a very strong call not only to the government, not only to civil society organizations or maybe people who are advocates or professionals in the mental health sector. It's a call for everybody. And it's very pathetic and appalling to know that up until now, that we're not just counting months, we're not just counting a year, since the ascension of this particular bill that have now translated to National Mental Health Act in the country. It's very sad. So I want to say that yes, we have seen some level of progresses where we are seeing that yes, there's the national mental health policy, there are frameworks, for suicide prevention and some other activities here and there. But I mean, what is wrong with following what is on the act? What is wrong with following the objectives? These are clear things that are already there. What is wrong with us having a department of mental health in the Federal Ministry of Health? What is wrong with that? Right? I mean, you can juxtapose what is happening in the country as against other African countries.
Okay.
You can also look at it vis-a-vis the impact of mental health on national productivity. Whether it's even insecurity, right? Which is already now an epidemic in the country.
Right.
So it's something that we will want to really look at and really x-ray to understand what exactly is stopping us, what exactly is hindering the full implementation of the National Mental Health Act in Nigeria. And we need to address it.
Definitely.
Because Nigerians need to enjoy mental well-being. Nigerians need to understand that the place of that mental well-being is directly proportional to the kind of life they can live as a family, as an individual, community, or a nation, vis-a-vis also that productivity.
Thank you very much, Mr. Ameh. Now, I know you do a lot of work around mental health advocacy and now recently into drug abuse and what have you. Now, we see that the NDLEA has arrested thousands of traffickers. But we know that the people most damaged are not even in the cartels. They are young people, the woman in the market, the person at the streets trying to earn a living for themselves. So I want, seeing your span of work in both mental health and advocacy against drug abuse, to give us the human picture of what drug abuse is like in Nigeria, the effects of this, and how do you think we can overcome the abuse of drugs?
Okay. I think, thank you very much for those multiple questions, right? I will see how I can remember them and then attempt to respond to each of them. But firstly, looking at the topic, right? Are we winning the war against drug abuse in Nigeria? So for me, I would rather even look at it that it's not the subject matter of maybe we're winning, because if you ask me, I can give you two answers from both sides of the divide. Yeah, oh, we're not winning, right? No, we're not winning. I can also tell you that, oh yes, we're winning, because you can see quite clearly and very obviously, I mean, there are arrests of people, and cartels. There are also a lot of activities going on, and that you see all of this happening. It's largely on the drug supply reduction. And that's not all about the war, right? You just mentioned market women, just mentioned some of the youths who know nothing about the drug cartelling or the illicit drug businesses. And by the way, it's one of the highest lucrative business across the globe. And very sadly so. Now let's look at it from this part. Now, rather than looking at if we are winning the war against drug abuse, can we also say that we should make an attempt to win the hearts of youths, the hearts of women, the hearts of people, rather than having drugs win their lives? Drugs are winning the lives of individuals across the continent and the country. And it's sad to see that there is what we can do to change the narrative. But then the issue is now like interest. The issue is now like, this is our focus. This is what we want to do. This is the policy we want to pursue. This is the interest we want to pursue. And that gives me also some level of concerns. Because,
go ahead.
Right? Because if you look at an average market woman, or if you look at an average Nigerian youth, it's not only that it's a job issue, but the impact that is, the ripple impact that is telling on that market woman, the ripple impact that is telling on that youth is huge. Because when we have youths who are not skilled, they can be empowered. When we have a market woman who is also not empowered, you can have a hopeful market woman. And somebody who is not hopeful cannot be resilient. So when they are not resilient, they can attempt to hold to anything that can help them feel fulfilled. And that's the problem.
And that's the problem you said. Nigeria has one of the lowest psychiatrist to population ratios in the world. And on a yearly basis, we see many mental health professionals continue to leave the country in Nigeria. Now, beyond training more specialists, does Nigeria need a completely different model to delivering healthcare, mental health care, basically?
Okay, thank you very much for that very interesting question. But let me firstly say that if you look at it from the global perspective, you might be very correct to say that Nigeria have some of the lowest psychiatrists around the globe. But I can tell you that without far-fetched search, Nigeria has one of the highest psychiatrists in Africa. Right? And if you look at it again vis-a-vis the population of the country, you will know that yes, there is a huge gap in terms of human resources for mental health care in the country. But then we're not doing so badly, except for the fact that yes, you also alluded that quite a number of these people are leaving the country for greener pastures or for some other social protection or some other reasons. But the fact remains that yes, we can improve on that. We can have some level of improvement where from the College of Medicines there can be conversations around creating awareness for medical students to have passion, to have flair, to also specialize in psychiatry. Okay, there should be that level of enthusiasm that is being developed, from the College of Medicines and also when they are graduating from school. And also, I just want to quickly mention that if the alternatives, we have had cases from WHO where they tell us that, and there are good, clear models. And these models are already being experimented in some of the primary healthcare centers, where you see that they use the MHGAP WHO document to train, to train the primary healthcare staff, healthcare workers, so that they can be able to at least run some level of assessment and provide some level of care, and also understand referral pathways.
Right.
Now, this is simply a model that is quite used not only in Nigeria, but of course it's something that has been practiced in Nigeria. And again, thanks to the Federal Ministry of Health, how that through WHO and other stakeholders, they have also gone through some states and have trained. Also to the National Primary Care Development Agency, they have gone through some PhDs in some states and have trained these community healthcare extension workers and these students to also be able to have the skills to be able to do what we call task sharing and task shifting. And it's working. And I think, again, we can improve on that to see how much it can work, because the issue of drug abuse in the country has to also largely do with mental health care, where we fail to integrate mental health care in the pursuit of drug and substance prevention, then the equation can never be balanced. Until we're able to integrate mental health care to the pillars of drug prevention, then there's going to be a problem. And in doing that, just to answer again or address your question, we have to ensure that access to mental health care is always there. It should be available, it should be accessible, it should be affordable, and it should be stigma-free.
Okay.
Right? Issue around mental health care should be stigma-free. We have this concern. People are always talking about the addiction of people, not about the recovery. And it's sad. People are always labeling and identifying people with the concerns and with the level or the kind of drug they have come down with in terms of addiction or maybe experimentation or problems, rather than talking about recovery or maybe care. So issue of stigma is also a very fundamental thing we need to look at in terms of, the psychiatrists, the psychologists, the social care workers, or other mental health professionals who at the community level or at the state level or at the national, federal or tertiary level are able to understand and provide this care and support.
All right. Recent arguments postulate social media as a drug marketing platform here in Nigeria. Skits, music videos, influencer content, like promoting or legalizing the drug of use. 37 million Nigerian social media users, most of them young. Now, as an advocacy group, we have established that there is a problem,
Correct.
which is, sensitization of the youth. You talked about when people are not resilient enough, they will cleave to the closest thing to hope and, get on with it. What is the advocacy community doing regarding the advertising of these drugs on social media using all of these platforms?
Fantastic. Thanks very much for that very excellent question. You see, the issue is that there is a platform, or there's a kind of messaging that the youths understand.
Okay.
There's a kind of messaging that appeals to the youth, and we're speaking particularly for the youths now. And you will understand that music, movies, entertainment is one of the easiest way that they try to, enjoy themselves, or maybe relax themselves. And it's really sad to note or to see that in all of these avenues or these platforms where youths are always clinging to have some of the feelings satisfied, or entertainment satisfaction, it is really sad to also note that it's on these platforms that you see the promotion, or you see the display of some of these drugs or substances. Now, what I would say is that recently I found out that the cheapest and the best strategy is to change the narrative. Now, we can also, if these are already out and it's already a problem, and it's already on the social media, then we need to come with a counterfeit messaging.
Okay.
We need to come up with music that can depict that, look, you can shoot an excellent A-class movie, music, a video without the use of drugs, without the show of drugs, without the show of drug usage, or drug, trafficking, or maybe selling, or maybe patronage. Now, movies are, because there's a lot of cinemas in Nigeria, a lot of youths in the campuses, how many campuses are there in Nigeria without a cinema, or maybe in the campus, or maybe within the campus area? A few of them. Now, if this is the reality, we must, as advocates, agencies, or individuals, or the community, or even the country itself, come up with measures to come up with right messaging that these youths will understand and relate to it. It's not enough to come with the right message, because you come up with the right message without bringing them on board, you might think you're doing the right message. So you must come with the right message that they can relate to it, right? And then you cannot look at the media. Now, let's see the entertainment industry, right? And then let's talk to these producers. Let's talk to these movie makers. Let's talk to these people who are comedians. Let's talk to these people who are coming up with skits and all of that, and let's educate them. One of the primary ways we can help to curtail this issue, and then begin to think whether we're winning the war against drug abuse in the country, is when we are able to drive a holistic preventive campaign around drugs. And to do that, we must get the right messaging, and we must use the right platform, and we must understand what appeals to this youth that they can give attention to.
All right. Thank you.
If you had the attention of the president for a few minutes, what are 3 top reforms that you would advise him to carry on to ensure that mental health in Nigeria is upheld?
All right, thank you very much for that very interesting ask. Now, the first thing I will have the Mr. President to know, as far as mental health is concerned in the country, is that it matters, especially in this time that we're in. Now we did something around integrating mental health into electioneering processes. Now, the elites, the politicians, and right now, Mr. President, you need to understand that until you have Nigerians mentally healthy, until you have them, being able, and what's mental health? Mental health basically is that individuals are able to realize their potentials and their ability, and able to come up with coping mechanisms, and are productive, and are able to contribute to their communities. You must be able, Mr. President, to see that Nigerians are mentally healthy. And they can't be mentally healthy when there are a lot of hopeless situations. Where there are hopeless situations, where there are no empowerment for the youth, where there are no targeted, deliberate measures to engage in the youth to see themselves as tools for not just the future of the country, but even for today of the country, then it's going to be a problem. So the first thing is, Mr. President, you must see that mental health is a huge priority, not only to the situation around Nigeria right now, but also to electioneering processes. You can have people go get their voters card and want to vote when they're not mentally healthy.
Okay.
And if they're not mentally healthy, it means that they have not been able to find themselves. If they're not able to find themselves, it means that they are not able to come up with coping mechanisms to deal with the current stress that they're going through. Right? And then the second thing I will also say is that people should be empowered with knowledge. Families should be strengthened because you can't get a healthy and a productive Nigeria outside a healthy family.
Okay.
Families should be strengthened. People should be able to understand that, look, a family must be strengthened in that they are able to cope with normal stress. And they can cope with normal stress if they are hopeless. They need to build resilience with understanding that, yes, there is hope, there's future, that things will be better. Okay, things might not be all right now, but people should be able to see some lights in the end of the tunnel. People should be able to see that there is hope. Okay. And with that hope, I guarantee you, Mr. President, and all our leaders, they can be able to understand that, yes, our mental health is being a concern to Nigerian president. And just lastly to say again is that the National Mental Health Act should please not remain on the shelves. Right. We need, Mr. President, to help us talk to state governors, the House of Assemblies, the State House of Assemblies, and also the state ministries of health. Right. We need to come together and ensure that there is a domestication of this National Mental Health Act, and we should follow it through. And lastly, I will tell Mr. President, please, we need an increase in the budgetary allocation for mental health in the country.
All right. Thank you so much, Mr. Ameh Zion Abba, for your time with us on the program this morning. We do appreciate you. We'll be talking about mental health, basically in this part of the world, of course, drug abuse as well. I mean, just like our guest has stated now, your mental health needs also be in order. That way, you can be strong enough not to abuse drugs. Welcome back to myself and Martha in the studio to wrap it up this morning, Martha.
Well, I think both guests have addressed the issue of drug abuse, extensively, which means that it is not just about apprehending the cartels. It is also setting a framework, a preventive framework. How does this get into the market? How do the youths get to interface with these drugs? Where did they get it from? Exactly. This is handling the matter from the root. And I believe that, with the right policies, with the right implementations and framework, we can win the war against, drug abuse in Nigeria. All
right. That being said, this is all we're going to be taking on this segment of the program. Do remember that you can follow us on our social media pages across all platforms at Rapid TV, and you can get to watch our episodes on the YouTube platform, which is at official Rapid TV. And wherever you are in the world, you can watch us live using our website, www.arabianradiotv.com. And just to remind you, we are also on the free TV app. So just get to download the free TV app and search for Rapid Television, and we are going to be there to keep you updated on the things going on in our country and, of course, around the world. My name is Victor. Okay.
My name is Martha Alu. Thanks for joining us this morning. We definitely will see you tomorrow.
See you tomorrow.